see, like in so hello everyone, also for the online ones. So as you could see all the time, if you were here also like previously in the previous years, I used to say that it's kind of like a side way because I'm coming from the entrepreneurship education at Aston University, but I was quite happy to when I just went through the program of the session, because I think yes, they are directly or indirectly related to the STEM education, but still is much more like methods and new ways of things that we can try in the education. So at the end, I said that also like the previous one was like interdisciplinary at all. That's also maybe that somehow brings us to that topic. And usually I bring to this conference kind of like whether pedagogical or methodological or didactic issues or problems or solutions, what we try, and this is what I brought here also today. So I have been involved for a couple of years, so a lot of years already, to an entrepreneurship education program, which comes originally from Finland. So I just skipped some of the slides, and this brings you an overview. And I don't want to go through on that one, but if you see the right on your right hand side, the column, these are the key words what can describe this, I would say, like a self-directed learning pathway for the students. And of course, these are the words which can be really kind of like, oh, this is something very good for me because, oh, no teachers, no exams or whatever. So these are the words that are really calling the students. And when they come to us, somehow they just realize that, oh, there's an issue here. So it seems to be very easy, but it can be also very difficult. And this is what we realized as well. And that is the main challenge, what we faced, I would say, recently in the previous years at Aston. So we have this self-directed, very open, very flexible program. So you need to set up your learning plans, and we are support you as team coaches on your learning way. But if this kind of program is too open, then it can be like a confusion for the student, especially the new ones that are coming from a frontal education and they don't find their way. I will come back to a little bit later on that. But if we give too much structure, which is also like coming from the other part of the higher education, then we just kill the autonomy. So this was the challenge: how to support our especially new students, but also like the later ones, and how to still keep the autonomy and the freedom of the learning, the self-guided learning. So what we realized in a little bit more detail, but I don't want to go very deep in that the speed of learning, even though we have like a very small cohort, so on the whole program we have like close to 60-70 students, but still the speed of learning is really different at the students. So there are some students that are really kind of like fast learners, and there are the ones that even like after a couple of months cannot find their way. When I had this education still in Hungary, one of our best applicants was a young student girl with the best results on the university. And after a couple of weeks, she just came to me that, hey, Peter, can I somehow go back to a normal business administration course? Because I need someone to tell me what I need to do. I need someone to give me the deadlines, and then I will be able to deliver it. But I just feel that I'm fully lost here and I have no idea what I am doing, and I don't feel that I learn. So that is coming with the issue. And the last one, which I said, that for the new ones coming from a frontal education, usually it's a full ambiguity that, okay, how can I organize myself? And of course, self-organization means also time management, at least partly. And this was the point when we wanted to intervene somehow to scaffold the learning way. So what we do now, what I introduce you, we don't exactly think that is something very new. So all the elements what we put in a 6 weeks sprint model, let's call it like that way. We are still wondering on the name of it. All the elements of this process are existing already, whether it in the how-to-goji, which is like the learning independency, a team academy model based on the action learning, so that exists also. In the team coaching, we bring some kind of the reflection and the feedback into the system. And the sprint structure, it's also like somehow scaffolds the learning. So all the elements, they were somehow existed, somewhere existed, but we just mix them together. And I know that also that exists, but maybe in that way, still hasn't existed before. So we just put 5 topics with 5 sprints in the academic year. So every sprint covers 6 weeks with the same structure, you would see it. And because it comes from the entrepreneurship education, we just picked 5 topics which we think are important in the entrepreneurship education. You can call them also like core competencies that we try to develop, which would be also kind of like a question afterwards. But these were the 5 topics that we developed. And of course, now at the end of this academic year, that would be the question whether we can just rerun these sprints in the following year, or we should pick different topics for the following year. So that's still a question, because really this is the first year when we started to implement it. Now we are in the sustainability week at Aston, and they are working on some sustainability challenge right now. Or exactly now, because some of them are international students and now celebrating the Eid. So still like there are challenges also from teaching point of view. So what we just introduced, and I will go for this. The 6 weeks are really thematized, and this is a structure of each sprint. So first we start with an orientation. This is kind of the launch of the topic. Sometimes we have guest ones just to introduce this one, sometimes not. Coaching runs parallelly through the 6 weeks, but there is like a little bit more input in the first one. The second week concentrates on the skill development related to the topic of the sprint. Then there is some kind of project work or like preparation for the next week, which is an action week. The whole week, then we don't have any contact hours with the students. Of course, we are wandering around our premises and so on, and there are some checking inputs usually on Monday and Wednesday and Friday, but then they are working on actions. In the first sprint, that was like a fundraising for charities. So for 5 days, they were just collecting charities, and we were quite proud of, because in this year they reached close to £6,000 for 3 different charities, which is quite nice one. Then in the week 5, there is kind of like the reflection within the year groups, which we call like learning organization, but this is the reflection for the year groups. And in the last one, which is the 6th week, we have a so-called community sharing event. In our terminology, it's called Houston Calling, because when the astronauts were outside, then they just called Houston back that, Houston, we have a problem, so you can share all your problems, and that is the community sharing event. So with this given structure, we just wanted to scaffold the students that, okay, and decrease the ambiguity, saying that, okay, you can be sure that that will happen also in the following 6 weeks. The same will happen in the following 6 weeks. So on one hand, you can get expectations, and already in the second sprint, we just discovered that they have also experiences, and they know much more how to organize themselves in the second one, because they just lived through the first one. So it was kind of like a radical change in our approach, how we deliver the program, because we just implemented in our all 3 year groups, and we have also like a very small master cohort. So altogether, it just covers 60 people, and we just introduced to everyone. It's also good because in the year 3, for example, or at the master levels, of course, you have more experiences, and you can apply it to your experiences, and you can share your experiences with the novices one in the first year. So you can also like naturally contribute. And in the week week 3, there is the project preparation. There is also this so-called project clinic event, when on Wednesday morning, the students can support each other projects. It's in a Word Cafe style, so people are moving around and sharing all the ones, and this really helps to develop the project for the action weeks. So because we introduce it to all year groups, it was quite easy to share the experiences among the year groups. Of course, it also helps that we are also kind of like separated in different infrastructure, and we have like a quite huge open office space. So there is a space for that. But it's kind of like a similar to the Innovating that you mentioned in Austria, that you have like 9 rooms, it also fits. So it can be shared. So what we did, of course, we just wanted to say that, okay, are we on a good path or not? And that was the reason why I just wanted to write with some of the colleagues the paper and say that what is it exactly. So on one hand, of course, you can say that it's kind of like a case study, like a practice-based case study, and it's like an ongoing process. But exactly that's why, because it's an ongoing process, and we just reflect in every sprint to the previous one, and if there needs to be like a correction, then we do like a correction or add something or deduct something from that one. That's kind of like a design-based research. So this was the 2 ways when it just came together, and all the feedbacks, or you can say that, okay, but what is the research part in that, or how can we get any data or any information, what we call. So what I said to you that it was highlighted in the first week, but during the 6th week, we have coaching sessions with the one. So we have a lot of notes, and this is what we share with each other in our channel. We are 16 coaches at the program. So there were kind of like our notes from the coaching sessions. There were also what the student need to write, the so-called reflective journals. So there is the own reflection in the whole process. And these reflection journals are the obligatory element of their portfolios, what they need to submit, whether at the end of the year or at the end of the sprint that we are running. And of course, there are a lot of feedback coming from this one. And of course, there are like kind of like a quantitative one, which is mostly the attendance. We apply also the kind of like professional standards, and these professional standards were developed by the students, and we apply it in the following academic year. And for example, they just said that if you are under 80%, if your attendance is under 80%, then from one module, your grade will be decreased by 10%. So it is also, that's why the attendance is also kind of like a quantitative data what we have. And also the other participation as well. We don't exactly use, that could be also like a question whether it could be used, the size of the revenue or the size of the turnover, because it's like a business enterprise development program. So naturally it could be that one. But because of the international students who are on the student visa and they have no right to set up a business in the UK, that's why it won't be fair. So we cannot do that one. And just very quickly, what still has been the main findings? The first one is the clarity and the reduced overload. So this kind of like the 6 weeks sprint structures supports our students that they can organize themselves much better, and they don't feel overwhelmed under the expectations. Of course, without this one, so like previous years, of course, there are academic modules and there are assignments that you need to deliver or whether collect a portfolio. But then at the start of the year, because there were like, I don't know, like 20 in the whole year, it seems to be a very huge one. So they were really shocked at how will I be able to deliver it. And if you cannot just set up for yourself like a time plan, like a project plan, then of course it's like, okay, it can be scary. With this system, we somehow just placed them into this 5-week system, and they felt that was the one of the students says that it was much more the progress that I wanted to achieve, that and I could monitor my results. And of course, with the launch at all year groups, there is also like sharing this process among the years, and it's also like this the reflection is also shared on that one. what we realized that, because of course it's not like block teaching, because it's not teaching at all, because of the self-directed way of learning, but still, because in 6 weeks we are focusing mostly on one topic. That's why the learning from this topic is much deeper than it was previously, when you need to deliver one assignment from this and then the second assignment from that, and so on and so on. So the learning happens also in a more concentrated and more deeper way. And sorry for that, but for 1.5 weeks, I'm already just got this cold. So what we also realized until now, as I said, we still haven't finished the first year, that the development of the students is also much more visible. So even the results that they achieve in an academic way, it's much better than it was. I would say not much. Let's say it's better than it was previously. And of course, because it's only the experience in 1 year, we cannot be sure whether it just like accidental or it because of the new way of the delivery, but still they are like a little bit better. The reflection is also better. It not only means that what they say in the reflection, but how they reflect and how they use the reflection as part of this self-directed learning. It's also deeper, so it helps also us to support them, because we understand their project, their problems also, and their challenges even better, and also like an easier assessment. So if it's not segmented assessment, but they need to deliver everything in 4 weeks, it's much easier for us as well. And the main or the key insight that we just realized with that one, that if we give some structure to this autonomy, what they have in the self-directed learning environment, it doesn't reduce the autonomy, but it enables it. It opens them some new challenges and doors that they can go through. So generally, you could ask that, okay, that what is the core in this? And I just said that, okay, we just pick the content, pick the elements from already existing one. And I think the main issue is, and that's why I highlighted at the first of my sentences, the time management, or the role of the time management, that I think the core idea is here, the time management, that we use the time as a pedagogical tool. So this was the scaffold that we gave them, how they can go on with that one. So that was on one hand the structure, and because of this intense 6 weeks, the feedback was also much deeper and much better than previously, not only for themselves, but also within the year groups and among the year groups. And also what we realized, that the progress is more visible. Of course, we want also to highlight the progress. So sometimes we just go outside of the walls of our environment. So for example, in February, we had like a poster showcase. This is kind of like an exhibition. And it was like really a huge event. So more than 200 people just came as a guest and so on. So we just made our project visible, but still it enabled us to make it more visible. And I just wanted to bring some ideas that I just had when writing this paper, and discussed also with my co-authors, because we just wrote a paper with 2 other colleagues of mine, that, okay, so the idea is coming, or what we use, it is in entrepreneurship education. But I don't exactly think that any of the tools wouldn't work in any other education as well. So, and if we are already here, I just mentioned something that, like, I don't know, if you go to a field study in the STEM education, it can be understood that one kind of sprint. Or if it's like a laboratory practice, it can be also understood as like a special sprint. So you can set up the expectations. The thing here is what I think that made a little bit like unique, that having the same structure during the whole academic year gives some rhythm into their studies. And already, as I mentioned to you, in the second one, they can base how to use this one and how to run the second sprint already on the experiences from the first sprint. So they were the I think that could be still like applicable to anyone. And it was really interesting because when I was wondering, and that okay, so this is the last one. So when I was wondering on the topic, then from a totally different point of view, we just got a meeting, an online meeting with team coaches all around the world, and that is how this idea came up. Because I haven't known about it, but I was just talking about this sprint model, and then the head coach at the Finnish Team Academy, which was the origin, she just said that, okay, we just introduced a 2 weeks sprint model in this year. So they had much more frequent one, but the basic idea was also that to every assessment, they run a 2 week sprint, and then they need to deliver something. So there was the adaptability also like transnationally in this one. So this is what we will to continue to discover that one. And if I mention them, then these are my lovely colleagues. I didn't want to be the only visual experience because that would be quite poor. So at least they are also there, Irina and Anu. So also in their names, I'm very thankful for your attention. And if you have questions, just let me know.
Questions do you have?